a little different because my mom is a sex educator. So I was with her times when she taught us about like, not transmitting the AIDS and HIV, virus through like syringes, and she had like garbage bags full of condoms and stuff. So it wasn't really strange for me to know that sex happened, that, babies came from sex, different types of things. But one of the things I think that TLC did for me with Waterfalls was that they showed me more so that I had that even the people that I trusted or thought would be, the best, would never lie to me, that sometimes they could put you in a position where you would eventually, contract an STD of some sort. And which was different than what my mom was telling me, because I was finding out about like what the virus does, that it definitely comes from sex. I was learning about it from more of a medical standpoint, but they brought a more human aspect of it, that you are vulnerable in the relationships that you have with people, and you think about like the peer pressure that young women face to do certain things or to be certain things, but that in those moments that you have a choice, and that choice is the difference between life with HIV/AIDS and a healthier life.
Ruth? In the work that we do with Soul Hot, there's still so much misinformation about basic facts about sex and sexuality and STD and public health that I think, we obviously don't talk enough about it. Obviously, I mean, even with the internet and information being accessible, so much misinformation, still a lot of stigma around STDs and what it means to be, quote unquote, a bad girl and who things happen to. So the video for me was really important. I got to shout out the video for Waterfalls because I appreciate that they made music that was, a lot of their songs was upbeat, a lot of it was sexy, but the Waterfalls was like, okay, y'all, stop and listen to this for a minute. Stop and really listen. And they got our attention, silenced us to teach us, and not in a very preachy, not at all in a preachy way. One of the things that I think plays to the strength of why we stop and watch, especially the video, is that they used real actors in that video. I mean, that was drama. So you could feel emotions like pain and crying because of I think the talent that they had in that video, which means they also had a tremendous budget that I heard they had to fight for. But I wish artists who are talking about real issues had these kind of access to funds to produce videos that are like short films to really engage the audience. And I appreciated TLC because it was like, we take our shit so serious that we need, Ella from Rock in our video, or however she got to play the part of the mama, right? But that all helped, I think, get the world's attention.
So I kind of want to end the conversation by bringing them kind of up to date. So TLC and Rihanna got into it. And they were saying that she didn't need to take her clothes off or always be shown, because she wore the dress, the Swarovski crystal dress, which I thought was kind of dope. Just personal opinion. But and then Rihanna came back with that whole thought culture. And if you don't know what thought means, go to Urban Dictionary. I'm not gonna give it no shine. But anyway, in a moment where black girls are hypersexualized as ever on multiple fronts, whether it's digital media, print media, music, you know what I'm saying? What is the significance of this album to how we understand black girlhood today?
Yeah, that was a fail, right? Their comments were just wrong, and Rihanna got them back, and I was like, I can't even be mad at you, Riri. Like, you're right, Yeah, I mean, so I think that they really need to go back to the sort of scripts that they set out for us and recognize how powerful and important they were. And that what they did was to give us the permission to be unapologetically ourselves, right? In every mode of articulation that we could do that. And I felt our friend, our pal, Kiese Lehman always says when he reads stuff that he felt cared for. And you listen to TLC in that moment, and I felt cared for as a black girl. I felt seen and recognized, and I felt cared for, and like my experience was being articulated in a way that mattered. And so for them to sort of not be caring about Rihanna kind of enacting her own pleasure and agency that is appropriate for this moment, which is a very different moment than that moment, bothers me. And I said to our pal Treva Lindsay, like, are they marking like some new wave of is Rihanna some new wave of hip hop generation feminism or something? Are they like the first wave? Is she like that reactionary thing that like, well, these young people are getting it wrong? I think we might want to entertain the possibility that they gave us an articulation for a generation 20 years ago, and that we're seeing the limits of that articulation as they understood it, and now that a new articulation may be coming forth. And it may be a little premature, but, I think that we can also respect our own sort of cultural traditions here and say it's not the same moment, it's not continuous. And so what do their comments mean in terms of a break and a shift in the culture? And what does it mean for how we think about pleasure politics in this moment, too? So.
Ruth?
I would say that, well, I don't know, because, artists have to do, they are growing, older now, and I don't quite know how, like, opinions get turned into fact, and, like, you all are so much more savvy about the internet and the use of social media, and I still don't know the difference between, hey, I tweeted this because I thought it for 1 second versus, this is my forever agenda on this topic, So I think just in terms of how ideas circulate these days have a lot to do with what is quote unquote made a controversy. Because certainly you could say I'm tired of seeing somebody's body. I feel like, but now whether you mean that as a personal attack, I don't know. And I don't know what they're doing to keep themselves. Also, they're still making music. I wish they, I don't know. I wish you didn't necessarily have to have a reality show to still, quote unquote, be relevant if you were a musician. And all of these other things, contests on Twitter. Like I said, you can speak to that much better than I can. But what I do know that is that girls deserve girl groups. I think that they have sort of, they are all time selling. They're the standard still. I don't know. Somebody else can argue me on that. I don't know who the girl group is. Most of the girls that I work with reference individual artists as their favorite or the most influential, who they listen to a lot. It's not necessarily a group. But I think we also learned a lot about the business side of it from their example that I think deserves greater articulation in terms of how do you live as a black woman artist, a young black woman artist today, and not be taken advantage of. And we can talk about things like SoundCloud and women who are artists who are promoting themselves and trying to do it differently. So, opting out of the industry for a lot of lessons they learned the hard way. And so I think they still have a lot to teach us, and I'm still listening to CrazySexyCool, swearing it's the jam. It still can prompt a lot of conversations that we have about the history, about HIV/AIDS, about all the things. The Red Light Special, we didn't talk about the South, but taking the Southern route, you know what I'm saying? Like, we can talk about all these different metaphors and how we interpret them. Still useful conversation to have with the black girls that I know and love.
Okay. Siobhan?
Yeah, I like Brittany's idea about these waves of feminism, I guess, as we see it play out through the artists. One thing that I think is important, this all reminded me of an interview that MC Lyte did a couple of years ago, and maybe she was being asked about Nicki Minaj and her sexualized image, and she made the point that there's a particular time and place, right? So we know that, and I think I think that T-Boz didn't retract her statement, but said she wasn't talking about Rihanna. So I don't know exactly what happened with all that, but I do know that MC Light made the point in reference to, and maybe Eve chimed in at some point as well, about how there's these different generations and how we all did what we could with what we had. I'm not making excuses for Rihanna either way. I did like the dress too, but I do think that we meet people in time and place. You know, when TLC was out, we were wearing baggy. That's how we dressed. If TLC was a different coming out 20 years later, maybe they would look a little bit different. And then, of course, I think Rihanna went and showed that one picture where they're covering their nipples as a way to show you showed your body too. But even then, I think it's a little different than some of what Rihanna does. So I think that, like, I think what would be nice, and I think all of us, those of you who are Lil' Kim fans, right, but also like Nicki Minaj, have also hoped that there would be a little bit more, at least public sort of unity amongst these different generations of hip-hop, R&B hip-hop artists. And so I think that's one thing I'd like to see a little bit more as we move forward. I don't know what's happening with Nicki Minaj. Is she still on the scene like she used to be? But particularly in the face of now, I think, what's his name? Izzy?
Iggy Azalea.
Yes. Okay. Right. And so now we have, this is the sort of the face. So it'd be interesting to see now, 2014, 2015, to see how maybe some of these hip-hop artists, women, might come together and make different kinds of conversations about unity. I don't know. I know it was a problematic conversation around her. Someone made a comment about her being the face of hip-hop. So now it's like, no, this is a moment now where we can sort of take all these folks together and do some generational conversations about that kind of thing.
Yeah. Bianca?
I don't know. I'm a little conflicted because I wasn't necessarily a fan of Rihanna's display at the award show. Like, I understood it. I understood her point. You know, with the whole Instagram thing and them censoring her for like a side boob or something like that. And so she's just like, well, they're just breasts. Okay, so I get it. I get that part. But Rihanna is always naked. And she's, you know, showing her butt, she's showing her breast, she's showing every part of her. And I love Rihanna. I love the rebellion in her spirit. But at the same time, I think that there's a level of responsibility that she avoids in her behavior. And, you know, everything, you know, pretty much that she does. She's just like, it's me. But she's on a platform, too, at the same time. And I think that a part of what, you know, T-Boz or Chili's comments were, it was just kind of like there's a responsibility that you have also. And it's not just to show your body, because I think that is a very important part of like the feminine rebellion is to be able to say, I'm not ashamed of my body. You know, you won't shame me. But Rihanna can be mean. Like, she bullies some of her fans sometimes and stuff like that. And I just, you know, I think she should have left it alone. I think she should have left it alone. I wasn't happy with how she attacked TLC. Behind the comments and that whole thought business or whatever is just so ratchet, and I don't know. I had a hard time with that. I had a really, really difficult time with that, and I don't know if you saw how T-Boz's daughter responded about. So someone asked her what she thought about it, and she was like, "Well, Rihanna has made a whole career out of showing her body." And you know, I think it's, again, like you all said, it's different things for different times and stuff like that. But I do think that you know, Nicki Minaj, I appreciate her more in the sense that she talks about how to, like, protect yourself and insulate yourself as a woman in the industry, and, you know, there are certain things you need to do. Rihanna, I don't know. I'm just gonna have to leave that right there.
Okay, no problem. Me?
I think at the end of the day, TLC had Rihanna's best interest at heart. I don't think they were trying to harm her in any way, but, you know, they made reference in their statement to Rihanna that they were the highest selling girl group of all time with their clothes on, you know, and I don't think that was them trying to brag or anything, but I think that was just them trying to reach out to Rihanna and say, hey, you don't have to do this. But in the same instance, they push the envelope just as Rihanna is pushing the envelope. This is just pushing the envelope 20 years later.
Yeah.
And if you go back and you listen to Rihanna, this was at the some award where she was being awarded as a fashion icon. This was her tribute to Josephine Baker. And if you go back and look at pictures of Josephine Baker, she was naked too.
That banana skirt.
Yes, I mean, and this was back in the 1920s, so this is nothing new. Nakedness is nothing new. You know, this is actually Rihanna just revitalizing nakedness, you know. And TLC tried to put a hold on that a little bit, but again, they were pushing the envelope just in different ways. So, you know, it goes to, you have to ask at this point, if this were 20 years later and TLC were out right now, how would they be pushing the envelope? Would they be a Rihanna? You know, I'm sorry, like, I don't know if they would be as covered up in 2014 as they were in 1994. You know, but I do give them credit for being, you know, the highest selling group of all time, especially back then when we didn't have YouTube and iTunes and Instagram and all these other networks to promote it like that. But in the same instance, I think that's why they reached out to Rihanna and tried to warn her, because this stuff is here till the end of time. Like, it's not going anywhere. The internet is permanent. And so all these things that you do, this nakedness that you're putting out there.
Global woman, though, too.
But can I say though, I mean, because I think that we're actually reasoning this a little backward. I think y'all are being very generous to TLC. I think they were shading her. I don't think I think they were tossing shade. I don't think they were trying to be protective. I don't think that they were trying to be loving. I think that they were saying, we don't want to see your body. But I think the thing we have to acknowledge is that that there is no space in the industry now for a group like TLC.
Right.
And what corporatization has done is it has narrowed possibility. And so for them to levy that critique in a moment when we only really know one major black girl rapper, and that's Nicki Minaj. Iggy Azalea is a white girl from Australia who tries to sound, I think she tries to sonically parrot blackness in a way that deeply disturbs me.
Southern blackness, because she's with Hustle Gang.
Yeah, I heard that shit the other day, and I was like, hell no. So so there has been a narrowing of possibility. There has been a narrowing of representation. And so what I would prefer to see, you know, because and what I did when I saw this TLC Rihanna thing, I just literally said to Treva, like, we were chatting about it, and I said to her, we have to make a pact that when we're in our 40s that we don't do this to young women in their 20s, right? That we don't start thumbing our nose at them and saying, back in our day, such and such and such. You know, like, we don't need to do that. We don't. And who would have thought that 20 years after Creep, TLC is in the news for parroting respectability politics for a young woman pushing the envelope? That's not what they have bequeathed to us. And I think that they're disrespecting their legacy by saying that type of shit. So if there's a critique to be had, it's a structural critique. It's a critique about the narrowing of possibility and about why we don't, as Ruth Nicole sort of reminds us, have girl groups, because girls do deserve girl groups. That's a better conversation to have than why Rihanna shouldn't be showing her assets. Like, you know.
I mean, I'm going to just end the conversation right there. Global warming, girl groups, shade, all that good stuff. Ladies, thank you so much. Bianca Keaton, Brittany Cooper, Ruth Nicole Brown, Siobhan Carter David, Brittany Manson. I love you guys. Thank you so much for joining this conversation. And we'll holler at y'all on the next episode. Y'all be easy.
I